All right, guys, this is a big one, and I don't care if you guys are tattooing out of your house, if you're tattooing legally, if you're tattooing illegally. Consent forms are probably the one crucial thing that you're going to want to have in your arsenal of things for people to obviously sign and read or whatever before they get tattooed. And this isn't anything you have to do every single time somebody comes and gets tattooed. Like, I always tell people this is a one-time thing, read it. All right, so the one thing you want to make sure, first of all, is that it's kind of a touchy subject, but there are people out there who can't read. So you want to make sure, in as good a way possible, as politely as possible, that they can read and that they're understanding what they're signing. So, and it doesn't matter if they're typed out, if they're handwritten, as long as they're legible. So what I do to kind of get out of that subject and to make it a little easier to kind of sneak into it and make sure people can read, I handwrite these. I just handwrite one, and I kind of so I'll say, well, my writing is not very good, which it is obviously good, but and I'll say, I just want to make sure you can read it, and understand what you're reading. So that's like a little weigh-in for me, but anyway, so what you're going to want to do, and again, this is something that's extremely important to you guys, whether you're doing this out of your house or whether you're working in a studio or whatever, that people understand this stuff. So I'm just going to go over this. This is, there are certain things that the state particularly requires, your individual state, other things you can add, and I try to do this as thorough as possible. So right on the very top, I said, no, this is a legal binding document. Feel free to ask any questions you may have. And I'm just going to go over it kind of quick. I'll try to get it in focus so you guys can kind of see. I'll try to read it kind of slow, so in case you just want to make one up yourself. It says, by signing this form, somebody has to write their name, acknowledge and agree to the following. I am at least 18 years of age and my date of birth is, they fill that in. And I have given visual proof of my identification. I have received written and verbal directions on the proper aftercare procedures of my tattoo and or piercing, and acknowledge that failure to follow said directions will result in color loss, possible infection, and an overall unsatisfactory outcome of how my tattoo and or piercing may look and feel. I have been asked about all medical conditions, particularly allergies, that may slow or impair the healing process. All medical information is vital and completely confidential. I acknowledge that any and all equipment used for the tattoo and or piercing process was prepackaged, sterile, and disposed of properly afterwards. I acknowledge that for recoloring or touch-ups to be free of charge, it must be the artist's fault and brought to the attention within 90 days of getting the tattoo. Note, scrapes, cuts, burns, sun tanning does not qualify as artist's fault. In regards to names and dates being tattooed, I acknowledge that I have been asked if the spelling of the names and words and numbers for the dates were correct and shown a drawing and stencil prior to the tattoo being permanently applied, and do not hold the artist responsible for any mistakes if they match the drawing and or stencil. No, it is your responsibility to know the proper dates and spellings of names you're getting tattooed. I acknowledge that tattoos are permanent and may be difficult to cover up, alter, or remove afterwards. Note, you can't cover up a solid black tattoo with light colors afterwards. I acknowledge that I have been advised against the style and or placement of the tattoo and or piercing, and by still choosing to get said tattoo and or piercing, do not hold the artist at fault. For example, tattoos below the wrist and ankle, tattoos done without using standard black ink for the outline process, all white tattoos, UV blacklight tattoos, and for that people would have to just like initials. So basically, like if I'm going to put a tattoo on somebody and it's going to be in an area where it's probably not going to last too long, like say the inside of someone's hand or something like that, that heal terribly, and a lot of times the ink flat out just comes right out, or say the inside of someone's lip or something like that. For that, that you would want them to acknowledge that they know that you tell them it's probably not a good idea, and they would have to initial that particular area. I acknowledge anything not to be deemed. I acknowledge anything not to be deemed to be the artist's fault may require me to pay a fee of no less than $20 to recolor, touch up the tattoo after. And then you would have the client signature, today's date, their phone number, which is optional. I kind of like to check on my customers a couple days afterwards, and a photo consent, which is optional. And they would have to just initial that. So, like, as far as the photo consent, like if you were to tell somebody, ask them if you could take a picture and want to put it on your Facebook page or something, you would want them to be, comfortable with having their artwork out there, especially if it's something custom drawn, because obviously anything custom, once it goes online, that's it for it being custom, it can be copied basically. So it's important, that they're okay with you putting their pictures out like all over the internet basically, and then you would have your signature on the very bottom. But again, as far as this stuff goes, it's just really important that people understand that there's certain things. I had a friend who tattoos in New York State. Actually, he did this beautiful, huge butterfly on this girl, and she took him to court because she says that she didn't think that tattoos were permanent. Of course, the judge basically laughed the case out of court, saying, how can you not know that tattooing is a permanent process? It was gorgeous. She didn't have any problem with the artwork. She just, for whatever reason, there's con artists out there or whatever, they'll try to get $1 out of people or whatever, and he offered her to do anything to alter it. He was trying to be as well over and above what he, to try to make her happy, and she ended up taking the court anyway. But so make sure that they know that everything, that's a permanent process that you're putting on. And if somebody were going to get like a huge name on the side of their neck in like solid black letters or something, chances are they're not going to be with that person forever in today's world. Relationships come and go. People on a whim think they're in love, so they get someone's name tattooed, and then they want to get it covered up afterwards. You can't just, I've had people say, can you put a rainbow over this name? And I'm like, well, I can tattoo a rainbow on top of the name, but it's going to bleed right through, you know what I mean? So, acknowledge that they know the cover-ups and stuff like that. You're limited, obviously, when you get something covered up. Like, usually cover-ups, you would want to use a lot of line work and a lot of heavy shading to cover up certain tattoos. So you just, make sure that people know that. And again, say you're tattooing out of your house or something and somebody had a problem with their tattoo, if they were to, take you to court or something, chances are if you're tattooing illegally, you're going to lose all your equipment, you know what I mean? But or whatever, if someone were to take you to court, at least you have this, that they signed, and that so to a certain extent, they would think that you're responsible enough to make sure that people, know what they're getting themselves into. Again, your responsibility to know the proper dates and names you're getting tattooed. I've tattooed people, parents, like the father of, somebody's baby mama. I hate that expression anyway, but the father would come in, that they'd be separated, and the kid would have some weird name. It's good to have a dictionary, by the way, in your studio, which I have right up there. But it's not my responsibility to know how to spell people's names, and people spell names differently. Like, say, Abigail, there's, a couple names, a couple different ways to spell that. So it's not your fault if the people don't know how to spell their own kids' names. But this father ended up getting this tattoo of his kid, and the spelling was incorrect, and the mom pointed it out, and I'm like, well, hey man, it's not my fault that you don't know how to spell your kid's name. But again, they were whatever, and of course I fixed it for him, but I charged him. I'm not going to do something for nothing if it's not my fault, you know what I mean? So again, make sure that people kind of get into that. And again, this don't matter if you're just tattooing out of your house, or if you're running a studio, whatever, but And put all this, have a place that you can put this information so it's not out for everybody to see, because I do actually respect people's privacy. So I have like a little folder over here, and it says private, DDI staff only. And I put consent forms in there, so not everybody. It's people's business. I do respect people's privacy, and that again I stress too, as far as when people, a lot of people are psyched about getting their tattoo pictures, posted or whatever. I'll give you an example. I had one girl who got a tattoo who insisted that I put her, I take a picture, I put it on my Facebook page, blah blah blah. To make a long story short, she didn't realize that her aunt followed my Facebook page, and realized that it was her whatever niece or whatever that ended up getting the tattoo. To make a long story short, she called me up 3 days later and said, "Oh my God, can you take that picture down? Like, my aunt gave me money that I said was for something else to get the tattoo, and she saw it and she's flipping out about it and this and that." So again, make sure that people acknowledge and know what they're getting themselves into. All medical information, I always ask people, are you allergic to anything at all? Not many people use latex gloves anymore, because a lot of people are allergic to latex. Like, most people use nitrile gloves. But ask people if they're allergic to like soaps, dyes, deodorants, anything like that before you slap that tattoo on and get going. Because if they do have a problem with any of it, unless you know about it, whatever. And some people might insist. I'll say, well, I use tincture green soap, which is a surgical soap, but if they have problems with certain soaps, you might want to at least at best advise them, and say, look, I don't know if this might be a good idea. If you have a problem with soaps, I'm not sure. And, maybe give them a little, like an allergy test, spray some on, wait for a while or whatever. Or you can actually do that with ink too. Just take a little drop of ink, and put it on someone's skin, which of course will be a little different than having it. But those are people who are, more prone to being allergic to like dyes, deodorant, stuff like that. But So, again, guys, I'm just trying to help you guys out. I told my buddy out in New York that apprenticed me years and years and years and years ago that how I was putting these videos out and, divulging some sacred secrets of tattooing, like the whole gap thing and the nickel and dime gap, which so many people on YouTube that put out videos, I already proved that to be incorrect. It doesn't matter on that. But anyway, I was telling him about this, and he was kind of saying, well, these are kind of like things that have been passed down. And I go, well, look, people are going to tattoo. The equipment's readily available to people. I'd at least like to see you guys, if you're new, if you're going out and getting into this stuff, there's probably some great artists out there who, I want you guys to, have that chance. And that's why I'm just trying to help you out a little bit with all this stuff. So, again, aftercare instructions, make sure you give people written aftercare instructions. And I'm pretty sure there's a video about that on this somewhere. But make sure that they have a written copy and that you also discuss it with them a little bit, because sometimes, like I say, some people can't read. Another thing, what you're going to really want to do is have stuff that you can give people. So I always recommend vitamin A and D ointment. This, again, well, in my particular state, it's a legality thing. I have to give somebody one packet of A and D for their tattoo, just so they have something as like when they leave here. For the most part, that little packet, if used correctly, will heal most tattoos like a couple times over. But anyway, so I'm required to give out a packet, but you have to you should provide people with that a little bit, at least one packet of whatever, to get them going, so they don't just leave with nothing and have nothing to put on, or go home or go to the dollar store and buy a jar of Vaseline and start glopping that on their tattoo and have it bleed the color right out of it. So, again, spend a couple bucks, do it the right way. So yeah, give out a little bit of something at least to get them going. And again, I mean, I even have stuff here, Aftercare products that I sell that I actually recommend for very inexpensive. So that way, people can there's no excuse why they don't have it, basically. Anyway, you guys, as always, thinking, I'll talk to you. Happy Halloween, you guys, by the way. Yeah. All right. See ya.